You want to learn how to grow Feverfew? Now, Feverfew is a perennial plant. It's actually related to the daisy. It looks very, very similar to chamomile. And when I first saw this plant, I hadn't actually sowed it or tried to grow it. It just self-seeded. Actually self-seeded in some of the flower beds near me. And since that time, I've actually tried to grow it more in the woodland garden, because what I've noticed about this plant is it can put up with some quite poor environments. Down in this part of the woodland garden, nothing really grows. It's that dry shade, and as many people that know about gardening will tell you, there's not much worse conditions than dry shade. Dry shade really is not very favourable conditions for most plants. However, the Feverfew here, and it's flowering, it's actually very beautiful flower, this one. And what I don't understand about this one is typically you'll get the Feverfew that has, it just looks like a daisy flower, like a chamomile flower. But here it's almost got a multiple petals, almost like it's been hybridized somehow. So quite effective actually, really good in flower making, things like that. My wife, sometimes she'll chop these down, get some corn from the field and make like a sort of country sort of display. So it is actually quite a beautiful plant to have around, but most people, when they think of Feverfew, think for the medicinal qualities. And as the name implies, Feverfew, it is actually used to reduce fevers and migraines. And what you want to do is knock it up in a tea. Now, the first time I tried this, I'm always a little bit skeptical when it comes to things like this, but I tried it and I actually found the tea for me almost had like a stimulant effect. And the more I read up on it, apparently that it does have that effect on you. You know, it will make you feel slightly stimulated. And I actually think, you know, sort of coffee substitute, if you were in a real situation where you couldn't access South American beans anymore, I would certainly have a cup of this to sort of get me going. It definitely has some sort of a effect on the metabolism. Now, this plant was first used by the ancient Greeks medicinally. It is native to that area, the sort of Balkans, Asia Minor kind of area, Turkey. But I mean, today it's pretty much spread all around the world. And if you see the little seed heads, they very easily spread on the wind. So you might have seen this before, and you'll always recognise, if you break off a leaf, real sort of deep, tangy sort of smell has Feverfew. Really, really good for them drought-ridden areas. It can really put up with drought. I mean, it would prefer full sun if you're going to try and grow this, but it will. I mean, here it's pretty, I mean, I'd say dabbled shade. It's pretty much full shade here. And what I try and do here, though, is I try and prune out the apple trees so we get a bit of dabbled light. You can see the dappled sunlight on me. But this is pretty much in full shade, and it's doing quite well. Quite attractive as well, you know, and quite a few beneficial insects you see around this plant. One of the things that really stood out to me with this, when you look at the chemical makeups and the effects on the body, is it relaxes the blood vessels. So that's one of the reasons why they believe that it's good for migraines. I have to admit, my wife had a really bad migraine one day, and I did her some of it and it didn't get rid of it. So I'm not saying, but I mean, you know, overall I noticed that metabolically I felt like I wanted to go and run a marathon that day after drinking some of this. So I don't know, you know, maybe it's just me, but I do think that this is a handy one to have around, especially if you're going to try and do a permaculture system or a forest garden system. If anything, just because it'll affect a few beneficial insects, but it does have medicinal qualities and will have an effect on you if you want to brew it up. Now, for some people it can induce a allergic reaction, so if you're going to try it, go easy for the first time. You don't want to end up in a situation you don't want to be in. Due to the plant's relaxing effect on the blood vessels, it can effectively be used for reducing blood pressure. So, you know, it's got quite a few benefits. One of the other benefits I've heard is it reduces the negative effects of the menstrual cycle. So, not something that I'm particularly going to be bothered about, or not the last time I checked anyway. So there you have it. Really, overall, not a bad plant. It's not something you're going to really want to eat, but if you've got a patch of ground that not much else will grow, and you want something that's useful, especially in a self-sufficiency setting, I would certainly give the tea a go. It certainly had an effect on me anyway. I don't know, maybe I was having a funny one that day, but I certainly think it has a stimulant effect. I mean, I would give it a go and see if it makes you feel a little bit more energetic or relaxed. But it does have some, it's been used for thousands of years. It does have some very well researched science to the benefits of this plant. Get out there, grow some.